Hi, this is Paul from Outerloop Coaching and outerloopcoaching.com. I want to talk this video about how the internet has changed the music industry. There are a lot of things that have changed for the better. There are some things that have changed for the worse, but a lot of the things that you think are probably a lot worse and all those great times or that used to happen in the music industry are long behind us are actually not true, and I want to talk about those at the end. But first, let's walk through the entire process from the time that you're writing your music right through the time that it gets released to your fans and how the internet has changed that entire process. First, for songwriting and for recording, your ability to collaborate with people all around the world is an amazing opportunity that just did not exist like it does now with the internet. In the past, you could record onto a cassette, later on record onto a recordable CD, you mail it out to somebody, and then they would listen to it, they would record their own version, send it back, and it would take ages to do, whereas now you can just pull up a Skype or a Zoom or something like that and you can do it in real time. It's an amazing opportunity you should be taking advantage of. The ability to collaborate with other great musicians and other great songwriters is an amazing opportunity you should take advantage of because you're going to learn from them and because your songs, and that is the ultimate goal, your songs are going to be better. As for recording, same thing. You can record amazing stuff just in your own living room. Just plugging into your laptop, you can record a ton of really great stuff. You can get that stuff sent out and have it mixed and have it sound maybe not as good as it would if you were sitting in a really high-end studio with really great tape and all that stuff. You're not going to have that, but it's going to sound pretty good for a lot of people. It's going to be good enough. So then as far as distribution goes, how has distribution changed everything? Now, back in the day when it was release day, it used to be on Tuesdays, now it's on Fridays. Release day, you would stay up all night sometimes and camp out outside your favorite record store waiting for your new release. And the way that had gotten to the store is it would get boxed up in boxes of 30 CDs. Geez, I forget how many cassettes were in a box. Oh man, but it'd be a ton. And they'd get sent out from a distribution center. The label would send out their product from either directly from the manufacturer or from themselves to the distributor. The distributor would then get out the orders to the record stores. The record stores would put in their orders a week, 2 weeks ahead of time, trying to guesstimate about how many they were going to need on release day or release week or the first 2 weeks of release, make sure that they were stocked up on the big releases. And they had at least a few copies of all the stuff that they might have expected to sell a little bit of, not to mention catalog and replacing catalog that had sold in the store while there. Well, that has changed, obviously. While there are still record stores that exist, and they are few and far between, and that means that there's less distributors as well. Now your distributors are the companies that get your WAV files, your high-end, high-quality WAV files out to the streaming services, the streaming platforms. As long as you are on all the streaming platforms, you've got a good shot at getting heard by your audience. Getting physical product out to record store just isn't what is as vital as it used to be. So your digital distributors now are going to be the companies that get your files out to the streaming platforms and get them up on release day so that you can promote your music and get it out to your fans on the day that it needs to get out to them. So your Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, Google Play Music, sorta, YouTube Music. There's a whole bunch of others. They want you. These digital distributors have relationships with all of them to make sure that your music gets to all of them. Each of those streaming platforms may have different rules and as to how much you can of your own stuff you can upload. Like a site like SoundCloud or Bandcamp will let you upload your stuff for yourself, but for a lot of them, like Spotify, they require you to go through a digital distributor. So make sure that you are signed up with with one of those. That is something you didn't have the power to do before. Before, you had to get signed to a label in order for the label to then have the relationship with the distributor, and then the distributor to get it out to the stores. Now, as an unsigned artist, you can get your music distributed around the world. That just didn't happen before. Before, it was such a struggle. You could possibly get the record stores in your town to do consignment deals with your CDs, where you take them in, you'd say, hey, look, every time you sell one, I want $7 for it. You sell it for 10, you keep 3, I get the 7. I'll come back and pick up what's left after a couple weeks. And I mean, geez, it was so much hassle, and you're driving around to all the record stores in your town. Now, you couldn't do that for all of the record stores all over the country. It just wasn't possible. And that's what a distributor would do for you. So getting a distributor to take you as an unsigned artist was next to impossible. This was the vital key why you needed to get signed. In order to get your product into the stores, you needed to get the label, to have the relationship with the distributor, to get you into the store. Not to mention getting you great placement in the stores at the end caps so that they could be, your album be seen. Now all that is wiped away. You have the power, you have the ability as an unsigned artist to get your music around the world on all of the streaming platforms, and do so with a direct relationship with a digital distributor. It's pretty amazing, actually. So that is one thing. Another thing that the internet has changed for the music industry. Now, going back to retail just isn't where your money's gonna be made at. Now, if for very, very large artists, for very popular independent artists, getting in physical product into record stores is still part of what they like to do, but a lot of this is more tradition. It really isn't a significant hit to the bank account. Getting to the product into people's hands is all about touring now. You sell it at your merch booth. And as an independent artist, it really it's not as crucial, right? People will buy CDs. There are some people who only listen to CDs. They're few and far between, and they're becoming more and more rare. Now getting an LP or a CD or something like it is all about a souvenir, a tchotchke, another piece of merchandise. It's not a vital carrier of your music. So it's just as easy that you could sell a shirt with a thumb drive. It's got digital files on it. It's just as valid as a CD now, right? So your merch booth, you probably want to have some of that stuff on hand, having LPs, CDs, even cassettes sometimes, but don't go crazy. Shirts and hoodies and other sorts of merchandise are so much more vital. And I'm sorry to say it, but this is the death knell for the music retail industry as far as the physical stores are concerned. They are mostly gift shops at this point and have music related paraphernalia when they are around. Sometimes they're selling the LPs and people are really into that. There's collectors and that sort of thing, but it's just not it's not what it used to be. So how we listen as fans has completely changed. Now, back in the day, you got the full length album and you would spend all your time hanging out with your friends, listening to the whole thing from front to back. If you were listening on LP, you got to get up halfway through it, flip it over. If you had the cassette, you had to pull it out, flip it over, stick it back in. It was a pain in the butt, right? CD was a huge improvement on it. Not to mention that you were now able to get, instead of 35, 38 minutes, which is what the limit was on an LP, now you could get 72 minutes worth of music onto one album. It was pretty awesome. And so therefore, especially in the early days of CDs, some bands were going crazy by releasing these just massive length albums, and sometimes to their detriment. But that's how people were listening. You're listening from front to back, and with the LPs and with the cassettes, listening to just track 3 or just track 7 was really, really hard. You almost had to listen to track 2 and then track 3 in order to hear track 3. And then that was part of the reason why you'd buy the LP and you'd buy the 45 of the single. So that way, at least with the single, you could just quickly go and listen to the single. Well, now that's gone, right? Now the way people are listening to music has changed because people are listening to song by song by song. And most of this is because of the way playlisting works. and the way that Pandora has influenced the way that almost all of the streaming platforms have got their radio features, where you start a song and algorithm will start to give you other songs like that song, other artists just like that artist, and it's a really cool way to discover new music. But you won't discover the rest of the album. You're going to discover song by song. So the way that people are listening to music has changed. You're no longer listening to the full-length album. Now, I've got a video right here over my head. Click the link when this is done if you want to check it out about how I believe that this is changing the way that you should release music. But that being said, the way that people are listening to music has changed, so the way that you release music has changed. This is evolving almost in exponential time, especially with the way new technologies and the way people are moving from platform to platform, and the way that people are not subscribed to platforms and they only have the ability to listen to radio. They can't listen to an album from front to back. They have to listen to it mixed up playlists, etc. So be wary of that in how you release your music. Now, last thing I want to talk about before I go into why this new stuff that's happened with the internet for the music industry is for the better rather than for the worst is I want to talk about how to market your music has been completely and radically changed. Now, I touched on this earlier when I talked about distributors and retail outlets. The way that you could get your recordings into the faces of people for their consideration has completely changed, and it's democratized by the internet. Democratized means that it's available for everybody. It's not just for a select few. Back in the day, the end cap, which was at the end of the aisle where all the CDs or LPs or cassettes were being stored, would be an area where the store would have a visual and stock up with just albums that they wanted to bring to your attention as a shopper as to things that you need to consider buying. And then have that little area right by the cash register was a big one too, because you'd walk up with your 3 or 4 or 6 albums, you know, it's payday, you got all this stuff, new music you can't wait to listen to, and then you'd get to the cash register and, oh yeah, I forgot that one, I got to get that one too, I heard that one on the radio or wherever it was, and you'd grab that and throw that on. It was a great way to sell and introduce people to new music. Not to mention that you'd be in the store and, you know, it's like the movie High Fidelity. You'd hear the store playing stuff. I used to love doing this when I worked in music retail, where you'd put a song or an album on and you just see people's heads turn. Like, what's this? I've never heard this before. This is awesome. It was a great way as the manager or somebody working in the record store to turn people on to really great new music. But it doesn't really happen anymore. You don't have to go through those filters of layers and layers and layers of people that you need to get to as an artist to get them to pay attention to your stuff and then be turned on enough that they think that they're going to turn on the people that are going to then buy your music or stream your music. Now it's up to you. Now there's all sorts of ways to do it, from Google ads and Facebook ads and all that stuff. And you can spend a lot of money advertising your music out to people. You can also make direct contact with bloggers and vloggers and all of those sorts of people who will then go out and tell their audiences about your music. That is pretty crucial. You don't require a label and a distributor and a relationship with the record store and all that stuff anymore. You've got almost a direct line. It just is dependent on how hard you want to work or how much you want to spend. Remember, as an independent artist, you either have enough money or you have enough time. You rarely have both, and you usually have closer to neither. But you got to work your ass off with the time, or you got to spend your ass off with the money in order to get people's attention to your music. And when it's great, when it's a good investment, that's when it all comes back to you, and sometimes in spades. Now, all of this, I've touched on a lot of this on why I think that the internet is so much better than it used to be. You'll hear all these stories of people talking about, oh, back in the day, oh, it was so great. We made so much money in the music industry, and oh, it was everybody was getting signed to labels. And It's not true. It is not true. As an unsigned artist, it was a struggle. It was a struggle because you required relationships. And oftentimes it would be people lying about how much they sold, how many people were showing up to their shows. Nowadays, all that stuff is documented. You can go to somebody's Spotify page and you can see exactly how many streams they've been getting, how many fans they've got. You can go to Facebook, see how many likes they got, how many Instagram, how many followers they've got. And a label can see actually how popular a band is before they consider signing them, rather than the label down the or the band down the street acting like they're big stuff and their uncle happened to know the guy who's the music director at the local radio station, and now they're getting lots of spins, and now people are paying attention to them because they're cool, but they are not necessarily good. And then this career would happen for them, and usually it would dud out because the band usually sucked. But it was all about those relationships. It wasn't about what actually was good. What's great about the internet is that, now this doesn't happen all the time, but generally, and a lot more than in the past, the good stuff goes up and the bad stuff goes away. And when you are good and you work your butt off on the internet, you will grow your audience. It is awesome. So that's how the internet has changed the music industry. Yes, there is less money that can be had, agreed, but there's also a lot less costs involved as to what it used to have, and the opportunities are so much closer for the unsigned artist than they ever were in the past. Do not listen to people who tell you that, oh, the past was so great. Make America great again. No, it's not for the music industry. It sucked. The way things are now is better than ever, and it's going to continue to get even better for unsigned artists. So keep at it. All right, so this is Paul from Outerloop Coaching, outerloopcoaching.com. A quick reminder to check out our blog on outerloopcoaching.com. We've got dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of blog articles on other topics you should check out, not to mention all the videos you see right over here. We'll see you guys next time.